Never boring, Patrick Johnston. The title of Ed Willis's book on the
Yeah.
Vancouver Canucks, and one that you cite as probably the most aptly titled book in history. We will get to this in a second. Just want to welcome everyone here to Canucks This Week. Beat writer Patrick Johnston. I'm Paul Chapman, and we bring you this video every week. Sign up to the Canuck Report at the Vancouver or at theprovince.com or thevancouversun.com. You'll get this stuff delivered to you every week. Patrick, explain to me what the hell's going on.
What the three
No,
games?
we have this. We have this personality soap opera which has been dragging on forever. Chemistry's
Yeah.
terrible
Yeah.
in the locker room. The team's getting rubbished on the ice. The coach seems out of answers. The president drops an interview which literally confirms everything and says like this is hopeless. And they win 3 in a row.
Yeah.
How? Why? Explain it to me. You're the expert.
The I mean, it's several different things at once, right? Let's start with on ice. Rick Tocchet has been scratching his head a lot of nights. As I'm doing right now, scratching his head a lot of nights, trying to get a sense of how to connect with his team. And I wrote that column a few weeks ago, pointing out that a lot of the exasperation I think we were hearing. He was careful in his words. He's very conscious of how to message things, and generally tries to answer questions fairly and truthfully. But that said, he was getting frustrated because the messaging that he was trying to deliver, and he and his coaching staff were trying to deliver, was clearly not connecting given how poorly his team was playing many nights. And what we've seen this week has been, on the whole, more structured play. I mean, last night the breakouts looked a lot better, right? Now, Nashville's terrible, and terrible to a degree that's as shocking as the Canucks' fall off the cliff has been. But
They were
Nashville's terrible.
7-3 in their last 10 going into that game.
Yeah, sure, but anyway, they just have not been very good this year. So on the whole, and it's been a strange experience. And anyway, they got it done, right? Just as they did in St. Louis, also terrible. But the Canucks have not exactly played well against terrible teams lately. But 2 games in a row now, or 3 if you want to go back to Saturday's impressive effort. They're putting it all together. They're playing like the team we thought they'd be at the beginning of the year. Now, you have to zoom out and look at how poorly things have gone for the most part this year, which again brings us back to the soap opera, right? The lack of chemistry that has become evident between the team's 2 stars. I mean, obviously there were clips last night of them working, talking, and they're I guess carrying on because they have to. But the fundamental truth is that for too much of this season, that has not been the case. And there is enough in that. And as we saw in Jim Rutherford's conversation with another outlet, he just put everything on the table. Like, everybody knew these things, and for whatever reason, he needed to make it publicly confirmed. Now, whether that was because he wanted the owner to clearly understand this, he needed everybody to know. For whatever reason, it's all. I mean, as he told a other outlet, it was all stuff that the players have been experiencing anyway. The players all know what their life is, right? All he went and said, yes, this is what they're going through. And it certainly changes the dynamic of the conversation. Fans now better understand what the problems are and continue to be. It's not just media nonsense, I guess is my point, right?
I don't think it should ever be taken. I mean, I've been answering emails this morning criticizing us for coverage of some saying like, why the hell are you writing about this at all? Even though it does great numbers and everyone wants to know what it is. And other people are like, why you're wimps, you have no guts. Why won't you tell us what's going on? I mean, there are HR issues at play clearly. So we're not privy to those, nor should we be.
We've asked the questions. That's
no, absolutely. But I want to get to the point here. Like, this was addressed by the captain and the coach.
Yeah, right.
This was a reiteration for me by the team president. We know the players themselves can deny, as JT Miller did yesterday, that there's an issue. It's been acknowledged by the captain. So and the coach. So all that stuff is BS as far as I'm concerned. Look, whatever issue there is, it's long been. It goes back several years too. So the team played well last year when maybe this conflict wasn't where it was, but people have talked about this ad nauseum. We've talked about it ad nauseum.
Yeah.
You don't have to be best friends, play together, blah, blah, blah. Winning cures everything, blah, blah, blah. I would say this, that, okay, great. They've won their last 3 games. And as you said, Patrick, they haven't done well against terrible teams, and they've stunningly done well against, good teams for the most part. You look at Washington, you look at certainly the win against Edmonton before they got cratered. But they can get results. It's not like JT Miller and Elias Pettersson are playing like $11 and $8 million players. And I think that's when you could truly say, it's not an issue, is when those two guys get going. Do you see that happening? Do you see those two guys looking like the type of player that earned them those contracts?
Well, I mean, the fact continues to be that their play has been uneven. So, Pettersson I thought was pretty good last night. But still only had 1 shot on goal. He had 7 shots on goal.
I just have to interject for a second. $11 million doesn't get you pretty good.
No.
If this team is going to win a Stanley Cup, he has to be dominant. And I think he's good in his own end. He's moving his feet. He looked more lively. He's paid as a top 5 player in the NHL. So do you think this team under its present construction can get to that?
No. Because there's and this is why. Because then you turn around and you have JT Miller, who was not good last night, and he's making a lot. And from night to night, that's been the assessment. Some nights some nights they've been both good, and most nights they've been mostly not good. And you're right, and they are making a lot of money. There's a huge amount of investment in both players to perform, and they haven't gotten it done this year. And that's the simple truth. I think I've said this multiple times. I've written about it. You look at teams of the past. At some point, the manager has to accept that what they put together on paper should work, but that it's not working in real life. And that's where the Canucks are at. I mean, that's become clear. Internally, that's where they're at. I mean, that's essentially what Jim Rutherford has said this week, that we recognize that we're going to have to change something. Almost certainly going to have to change something. They're in no rush, he says. Which, I think is partly because they think in the end they're still going to make the playoffs, which is probably likely just because it's such a turtle derby around the Canucks that Calgary is just not that good, and they haven't pulled away. Seattle's not going to catch them. They put a couple wins together.
And Seattle's not good either. This is the thing. You're right.
That's what I mean. Like there's minimal competition here, right? Like getting into the playoffs is not going to be terribly impressive this season because the Pacific Division outside of the top 3 just isn't that good. The Canucks are in a playoff spot as we speak. Obviously, Calgary has a game in hand, 1 point back. But, the Canucks are 2 points back of LA. LA's got games in hand. But, the point is that the playoffs here the bar is very low. And so the Canucks don't have to be in a rush to make a change because they're playing sort of well enough, but well is the wrong word because it's not that great.
Well, if making the playoffs and not getting past the first round, let's be clear, that's a step back, if not 2 steps back compared to last year. For a team
that came into the year believing they just needed a couple tweaks here and there, and then they'd be a proper contender. I'm not making even the second round would be a huge step back.
So let's talk about some other stuff. I find that and it's not just this soap opera between Miller and Pettersson. It's the fact that the team just hasn't been very good.
Right.
One of the saddest parts of that to me is it's robbing any conversation, not any conversation, but it's robbing some of the conversation about how damn good Quinn Hughes is.
Oh, my God.
The fact that he is having the season he is in the face of all this other stuff, to me, makes it even more remarkable, especially as the captain, as someone who probably takes this on his shoulders. I just don't think it's getting enough conversation. And so when I look around the rest of the NHL, we do this wonderful file. One of our staffers here puts this together, like what they're saying about the Canucks outside of the NHL or outside of this market. And, 95% of what's being said outside of this market is about the soap opera and not enough about who is the player who is clearly the best defenseman in the game at the moment.
in January, we're at the end of January. Quinn Hughes has only 2 games this month where he did not record a point. It's astounding. He has 6 goals and 10 assists. As we sit one day, there's one more day in January, one more game. He's got 16 points this month, and he's a defenseman. It's been a stunning season from him. He's playing 26 minutes a night. He is consistently leading the way. One game this season is it one game this season? Let me just go back. 2 games. There are 2 games this season where Quinn Hughes does not have a shot on goal. Right? It's
one of them is probably the one he got thrown out early.
Well, first game of the year, and then the game against Toronto. No, like he's recorded shots. He's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 games this year where he has only 1 shot. Every other game this year he's had multiple shots. Like he's just had an incredible season. He is such an influence. He's making everything, as we've said, as off the top, Miller and Pettersson have been terrible. So thank goodness for Quinn Hughes, right? Like this team is nowhere without him. It has never been more stark than it has been this season. How important he is to this team, how important he is to performance, and the dominance, the other dominance of when he's on the ice. Like again, I've repeated it. The 16-17% swing and shot percentage. That when he's on the ice, the Canucks are getting almost 60% of the shots, and when he's off the ice, it's low 40s. Like he is so incredibly influential on this team. They're never in their own end. He gets the puck, he gets it out, he skates it out, he leads the rush. Right? Like it is absolutely incredible the season he's put together. On pace again. I mean, last year he was on pace for a lot of the season for more than 100 points. Now he may be 100 points, and just a reminder of what this team is supposed to be. If he gets to 100 points, that will be 3 seasons in a row a Canuck has got more than 100 points, right? That's unprecedented. The Canucks have never had 3 seasons in a row with a player with 100 points. It's just absolutely astounding.
I know I have seen some fan angst, 2 years left after this on his contract, and should things continue to come apart and the team goes into another rebuild, what would that mean for him? Yada, yada, yada. But considering his age and how good he is there room for him to get even better?
Well, I mean, he's 25. He's in his prime. You look at the way so much data now on aging curves. You get into your late 20s and things start to slow down. He's certainly, the way he's playing right now and the health he's managed to show. I mean, obviously he missed a few games, but the overall health he's been able to show. Health is, in many ways, it is true. It's a skill. Some guys it's unfortunate they don't have it. He's been remarkably good at keeping himself healthy while playing at an incredible pace. So as long as he remains healthy, yes, absolutely. There's multiple seasons ahead of him where he is going to be this good. It was pretty amazing how, he's already caught up to Alex Edler as the most leading scorer in team history, right? Like, Alex Edler was a very good defenseman, but, as you like to point out, it's a forever statement that Alex Edler is so high up the list that he has been top of the list.
Yeah.
And that's not a slight against Alex Edler. That's a slight against the Vancouver Canucks. And Quinn Hughes is just going to absolutely eclipse him. And obviously is going to be, if not the one of the best players in Canucks history. No matter how long he stays here, he's just having an amazing season, and it just the fact that his names keep coming up with the likes of Coffey, Bourque. I mean, it's not even Bobby Orr. That's basically incomparable. But Coffey, Bourque, Potvin, these are the guys that he's in comparison with, and these are the quote unquote second tier of all time great defensemen. It's amazing.
Yeah, well, I mean, maybe when there's no games to talk about in a couple of weeks at the break, we can get into the retired Ring of Honor, how, whether it's because it's a marketing tool or whether because your history's been so poor, you overreact. But the list of good, very good, but not great Canuck defensemen who get elevated, and this is no slight on them, but, Oland, Lume, Jeff Brown, Jovanovski, Edler, sometimes it's body of work where they hear long enough. they've been lionized because there hasn't been a true benchmark amongst Canucks defensemen, and now we have one, and these other guys are so far below him, and you're right, the numbers bear that out. Just wanted your sense of, everyone's waiting for this deal now, and again, we look at media outside of here, and everyone, when they talk about the trade market, they talk about Hughes, Miller and Pettersson. That's the one everyone's waiting for. Now, we saw a fairly sizable deal go down last week, which of course, come on, Canucks are in negotiations for that. But, these comments and everything that becomes so public means that their Canucks aren't going to get full value. So at some point, as we get closer to the deadline, when does that happen? What's your sense? There was a period, I think, over the last 2 weeks, probably going up to last weekend, where people were expecting any day for something to happen. It seems like that's not going to happen like imminently. I mean, I could be wrong, but what's your sense of something happening? Not even with those two guys, but this team, you've been saying since training camp, team's got to make a move for defensemen.
Right.
Jim Rutherford and Patrick Allvin have tried to get in on stuff early before the deadline. It's not right around the corner yet, but weeks are ticking away. Are you sensing that this is a never-ending story of working on things, or is there patience there? Now I'm going to have that stupid Lamal song stuck in the back of my head all day.
Atreyu. Oh God, I hope it's not the never-ending story. Listen, they were close. We know this. They were close. They were close with, obviously, almost traded Pettersson to Carolina on Friday. It sounds like that deal with the Rangers. I mean, I heard from someone today that we heard I heard it was about retention. Multiple other people heard it was about retention. It sounds like it was on the New York side of things. That I guess their owner put his hand up, I think, and said, "Well, do this." So that's they've come close. I think they're going to keep trying. I heard, Rick Dhaliwal talked about Colorado being an option. I had actually pondered Colorado last week, especially once Rantanen got moved. I heard basically from someone else, let's see what happens with Colorado. And then they went and made a deal. So, I don't have anybody saying specifically that's what I'm going to do. And everyone seems to think Colorado was going to chase after Sidney Crosby, but Sid's pretty clear he doesn't want to go. So, what's option B? Is JT Miller an actual viable option for them? Would he go there? I think so. But that is the other factor. Remember, is that Miller in the end controls the situation. He's got the no movement clause. So if he is going to accept trade, it's going to be somewhere he wants to go. I don't expect he'd want to go to Columbus, but Columbus certainly is interested in. I mean, I think Columbus is more interested in Elias Pettersson than they are in Miller, but something's going to emerge, right? Like things are going to shift, and this is certainly what they're hoping for, right? Like that's why I asked Patrick Allvin this last week. You talk about timing. Does that mean you're waiting for the trade deadline? And he goes, well, people have more money then, right? Like they've got more cap space. He's like, yeah. Maybe that is all we need. Without saying specifically who he was trying to trade. But
although, you got more cap space, but your commitment is less to the player. So,
yeah. Anyway,
I mean, there's ways to make it work if you want to make it work. What are the odds that it would be someone other than those two guys getting moved? Do you think other players are on the table at this point?
Well, yeah. I mean, I think Brock Besser's. I mean, we'll see how things shake out with Brock Besser. Certainly, you get the feeling that if he were to accept something that he currently is making, they would love that. But his agent, obviously Ben Hankinson he's been doing this for a long time, and he will be wanting a raise for his player. He's going to be like, there is no doubt in my mind that Canucks would be like, hey, you want to stay here? That's great. You're going to take this. And that there's a belief that he is, you just look at the comparables. I wrote this last summer. There's comparables that are making more money than he's making right now. So the idea that he would not make that money by signing with another team is inconceivable.
And players who've signed here for shorter terms because of the teams, the way they had so poorly constructed their salary cap. You can't blame them for wanting, once they approach that age, for wanting, no, this is the last big one. I'm going to get everything I can get, right?
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, it's going to be interesting how it plays out. I mean, they make this management group has not been afraid to make judgment calls, rightly or wrongly, and to stand their ground, sort of on what they want. And obviously, rather spilling some tea on the Zadorov negotiation, but like, if the player had in the end, the Canucks' position, and I think the player's position, if the player had wanted to be here, he would have stayed.
Yep,
So the same thing.
exactly.
So if Besser wants to be here from the Canucks' perspective, he will make that happen on his own.
Yeah.
So with that in mind, he's clearly a trade chip. And I think that's probably the most obvious. I mean, I suppose there might be other moves, but the three players that we've all been talking about, I think, remain the three players that are going to be most likely to be involved in trade talks, because those are the trade. If there are going to be any trades, it's going to be a top player. It's not going to be something around the edge.
Okay, we'll finish up here. Of course, you and I both had the Canucks going 3-0 last week. Coming off the heels of that Edmonton beating. Next, let's go to next Thursday. Dallas, home against Detroit and Colorado, and away at San Jose. How do you think the next week shakes out?
Well, the San Jose one, I mean, if we work backwards, I mean, that's a should-win game, but that's also in the middle of a weird schedule. I'm inclined, I think in Dallas is missing Miro Heiskanen. I think that was just announced today, as we expected, given the, I assume a knee sprain. But dealing with the injury out of the Stone collision. Dallas have been weird. I mean, I don't know what to think of these Canucks. It's a strange matchup. They took Thursday off. I think Dallas, despite all that, is still going to win the game. I'm a admirer of Pete DeBoer and the way his teams play, and I think that kind of team, which is a persistent, hard forechecking team, have been giving the Canucks problems this year, especially the defense court, which is still not fast outside of Quinn Hughes. So I think Dallas will win. They fly home. Detroit on Sunday. Detroit's not very good. I think they'll beat Detroit. I think they'll lose to Colorado, and they'll beat San Jose. So 2-2.
3-1 for me. All right. Thanks, Patrick. Been a busy day. Every day is busy with all this stuff. You can read Patrick's stuff at theprovince.com, vancouversun.com, or you could pick up a print edition, read it there. Or sign up for our Canuck Report newsletter. You'll get everything that we produce, video, audio, written words, all to your inbox every day. So thanks, everyone. Thanks for listening, watching. Patrick, thanks for your insight, and we will talk to you next week.